Hey, it's George the Tech. Welcome to my new podcast. Yes, that's right. George the Tech is a podcast.
George the Tech.
We're doing this on video and audio today because this is also our YouTube channel. But the point of this show today is I have a very important person sitting next to me. And the reason that you folks, yeah, he's over there. The reason you folks are hearing this on this podcast channel is because of this gentleman right here. This is Dan Leonard. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great, George. We're having a great time here in Chicago where we are.
Yeah, so we're wrapping up WoVoCon 2024 in Chicago. Dan Leonard is president of World Voices, so we're in his presidential suite in the Royal Sonesta River North Hotel, which has been lovely. Actually, it's a really nice place to work. And also hanging out in the room you can't see off camera is Robert Marshall from Source Elements and co-host of Pro Audio Suite. So what I wanted to do, Dan, was just talk about the passing of the torch, which is essentially what's going on. It's a takeover. I'm going to take over this long-running, venerable podcast channel, and thanks to you, all those fans that still follow it will listen to what is coming out of George the Tech.
Yeah, well, we started this channel in 2011. Back when nobody knew what podcasting was. Well, no, they knew what podcasting was, but we started VOBS back in 2011, and you're like, well, we had to do this as a podcast, so we created this channel, and almost 14 years later, it's still here, and now you get to take it and you get to play with it. I was wondering what you were going to do once we stopped doing VOBS, but now I can see you're going to carry on with your own podcast.
Well, when I was on the show with you, I had a role. I had a few roles. One was being the tech guy and getting the show on the air. Right. But it was also, I felt like I was the color person, or the color man, as they would say in sports, right? Yeah. And which was fun. I got to fill in the blanks and just kind of add more. But I wasn't the lead interviewer. So now that I'm doing it on my own, I'm getting to experience what that's like, and I'm actually enjoying it.
I hope I taught you something.
I think for sure you did, because I learned through osmosis all these years.
Yeah, just watch the earlier episodes and see how you developed into a good interviewer and a good personality on audio.
It's true.
No,
the original ones were pretty bad.
Yeah. But we kept doing it for some reason. Somebody once said, who's going to want to listen or watch a TV show about home voiceover studios? I won't say who it is because he gets pissed off every time I mention it. But the thing is that 13 years later, we just kept doing it, and it was a lot of fun. And once I came out to California, because we were originally doing it in Buffalo and in Santa Monica. Yes, that's why it was called East West Audio Body Shop. But then we came out to California, and it became VOBS.
Which a fan of ours came up with that name, which when he sent me an email in the middle of the night, I got it. VOBS, voiceover. I was like, yes, you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest is history.
Chris Hewart, by the way, if you're watching, Chris, thank you.
Yeah. So, the years in Buffalo were fun and interesting because we had no idea what the hell we were doing. It was, we were using Skype.
Yeah, we were gluing together Skype along with Ustream Studio or something, Ustream Pro or something like that.
It's a fortune every month. They charged you per viewer, I think it was. Yeah. And but it was, I'm in my studio in Buffalo and you were in your office in Santa Monica, and then when I came out to California in 2015, we got lucky because the house we bought had a recording studio built in the garage, and it was a big space, and we turned it into a TV studio too, aside from a voiceover studio. And we worked on the lighting and all the technology, and you did a great job of making it happen every week. And
even when it was Apollo 13.
Well, we didn't have as many Apollo 13 episodes once we were in LA because
you have selective memory, but that's quite okay, actually.
Well, I mean, if things happen, I would just go fix it. we'll just wait, and eventually it'll work again. But boy, the fun part was, I mean, aside from just being able to do it, at home, which really ticked off my wife for a good long time.
Sorry, Marcy.
Yeah, we got a lot of important people through the house. Fred Melamed was there, and Debbie Derryberry, and Scott Parkin, and
Tara Strong.
Tara Strong, I still have the Tara Strong Memorial Chair in my studio, and
so many of our friends that we forget they're important because they're our friends.
Yeah.
Joe Cipriano.
Yeah, and people like that. Some very interesting people who really understood the business because they were at the center of the universe of this business, and gave us some really, really good information for our audience, and the audience just grew. Now, we did the show live every other week. I mean, first it was like every week we would do it, and then
It was every week for a very long time, actually.
yeah, and so we separated it out just to make Marcy happy. So we did it twice a month, but we would record 2 shows. And, someone would come in, we would interview them. A lot of times it was over Zoom because they didn't want to drive all the way into Sherman Oaks from Studio City.
Well, that's a tip for you guys. Batch your shows. If you have an opportunity to take something that would have been a long, long show and split it into 2 and release it as 2 parts, I highly recommend it. Or have 2 different types, like what we were doing. We were doing an interview show, and then we would do a tech show. And we would get to do them at once, and so we'd get 2 episodes. That just it reduces the time in production. It keeps the momentum going, right? And it just worked out so much better that way.
Yeah, and the interviews were always cool, and it was a very loose format. But then when we started to do Tech Talk, it was what are you talking about this week? And usually, as we're like starting the show, you're on the computer. What's interesting? I got to find something. Like, oh, I just found this thing the other day. I'm like, yeah, sure.
2 minutes ago.
Yeah, on this new technology, and then we would take questions from the audience, sometimes pre-submitted, or somebody would write it in the chat room, and we would just riff on it. And we're like, why do people like this so much?
We were just entertaining enough, apparently.
No, well, we were having fun because we had no idea. I mean, I always talk about how podcasting is the great democratization of broadcasting because anybody can do it. And as I always say, just because everybody can do a podcast doesn't mean everybody should.
That's right. Content is king, kids. Just because you have a good mic doesn't mean you should do a whole show.
Exactly right. And and there's some pretty bad podcasts out there. And sometimes people will come to me and say, can you produce this podcast for me? And I'm like, yes, but record in a quiet room, and you get these things with loud echo, something like that, because they're not using their mics right. And I'm like, no, be in a quiet room, and then trying to clean up their audio, and it's like I'm a miracle worker, but I'm not God, do it right up front. Anyway, but we had so much fun doing that, and just riffing off each other, and people just ate it up, and it's still a mystery to me, but it was fun, I mean, I had been in radio before, so being a celebrity. It was nothing really new to me, but I was surprised at how, people would come up to us, at conferences and stuff like that and say, I watch your show all the time. You guys are great. Or like, I feel like I know you. That's like, yeah, because I come into your computer every week.
Right. Well, now we miss your show. We're hearing that.
Yeah. When we signed off and I officially announced it on Facebook, we got like 300 messages from people saying you changed my career. You really allowed me to excel at voiceover, and all the advice you gave us and all the guests you had were fabulous. And we were just having fun. But the primary purpose was to promote our businesses of helping people with their home voiceover studios.
And it did just that.
It did. You built your business on it. I built mine. I'm very happy to pass the channel on to you for your private use. I'll just hope you'll ask me back every now and again.
Of course.
To see how my golf score is or, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So the purpose of the channel now, it's just a home for George the Tech and my content to have a podcast space. We've been doing YouTube content for a long time, basically as long as VOBS has. But, you know, the podcast format is something that's special. The audio format, again, we are filming this because we like to be you got to be in multimedia. But those of you who are fans of listening to the show all these years are used to that listening format. It's just a different experience. It's a different thing. You multitask. It's a little more passive. But in other ways, it's a little more intimate because the mic is right here. You know, it's handheld mic. It's mics up close, and that's the vibe that I want to continue on the show. So for a while, you guys are going to hear some content we've previously released, and you're going to hear interviews maybe that you haven't heard yet because maybe you don't watch the YouTube channel. So you're going to hear some great interviews that I've had with folks like David Pogue and. Well, how many folks like David Pogue are there? Not really many, but David Pogue, which was a big deal for me. And then a lot of our really talented voice actor clients like Issa Lopez. Well, you're going to get to hear a lot of those same kind of folks that come on because I work with a lot of these people. They're my clients, and I love talking to my clients. And I love talking to the partners that we are teaming with and collaborating with. Our tech team itself, at some point, I'll get everybody in the seat, because everybody deserves a moment of spotlight on the podcast. So we'll be talking to all of our tech team, including
me.
Dan Leonard is part of the tech team. Robert Marshall, who's right off frame over here, also part of the tech team. We're going to have all of them on the show, as well as all the partners that we've formed friendships with and alliances with over the years. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of ground to cover. So that's what we'll be doing here on the George the Tech podcast channel. So Dan, I just want to say thank you. For
my pleasure. It has been a riot.
It really has. This isn't a goodbye. This is just a thank you because this is
in LA. I mean, what are we going to do?
Exactly. This is just a thank Dan, for letting me take over the channel so that I didn't have to really start a fresh channel from zero and promote it. This is getting this seeded with a bunch of you fans of ours is something that I value, and hopefully a lot of you will want to stick around and keep listening to the channel.
Notice when you come up with something new, and they're like, "Oh, there's a new podcast."
Yeah, and we'll probably also be doing best ofs or just like. Listen to Radio Lab. They're like, well, this was originally aired in 2011. We will probably be doing something like that as well, picking out what are some of the fan favorites, the ones that were the most popular, and dropping them into the feed. So you'll still get to hear Dan and I do our thing and bring guests on and stuff like that.
Looking forward to it. I might actually listen, but try to see if I can remember what it was I actually said back then. I don't really remember a lot of the content of what went on because when you're doing a show like that, doing it live, you're on and you're like, and things would happen.
It's like an out-of-body experience.
It really is. And so, when you go back and start watching it, when you're editing it or something, I'm like, I don't remember him saying that. It's kind of weird. Good luck with the channel.
Thank you.
Have fun with it and don't take it seriously. And I think that was the key to what we did. Is like, it'll be all right. We'll be fine. And apparently that formula worked. So we'll just keep doing that.
Indeed, it did. And thank you. And I hope you guys stick around and you find the channel valuable and you share it with your friends and leave reviews and all the stuff that all the other podcasters tell you to do all the time. And then also let's thank our sponsors from VOBS because my gosh, one's sitting right in the room, such as. Well, let's start at the top. Do you remember all the sponsors, top of your head, right off the...
Source Elements.
Harlan Hogan, VoiceOver Essentials.
VO Heroes, JMC Demos, VoiceOver Extra, our friend John Florian over there.
And I'm really putting Dan on the spot.
And Voice Actor Websites.
And
Harlan was with us from the beginning. I was hoping I could see him while we were in Chicago here, but he's probably out in Hawaii or something.
He's missing the best weather Chicago ever gets right now.
Amazing here. It was warm on the patio last night. It must have been in the 70s.
It was amazing here. And so, stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the content we have to come and leave comments. This is George the Tech.
And I'm Dan Leonard.
And you're listening to the George the Tech podcast, and thanks for guesting today. Great to hang out with you, Dan, here in the flesh. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.